Welcome to Lesson 03, where we finally tackle the elephant Lesson 02 kept pointing at htaccess. Here's the honest truth. Nginx skipped this feature entirely. There's no per-directory runtime config, and pretending otherwise just wastes your migration time. So today we triage. Every .htaccess directive you've got falls into one of three buckets. It translates cleanly, it needs careful merging, or it simply can't migrate because the feature doesn't exist in Nginx. Before we triage anything, let's get grounded in what people actually put in these files. In production, 6 patterns cover about 95% of every .htaccess you'll encounter. URL rewrites, by far the biggest at roughly 60%, then basic auth for staging and admin areas, custom error pages, caching headers, IP-based access control, and PHP handler wiring. Once you've internalized these 6 shapes, every .htaccess starts looking familiar, and triage becomes pattern matching instead of guesswork. Now here's the framework that drives the rest of this lesson. Every directive lands in one of 3 buckets. Green translates cleanly. Rewrite rule, header set, error document, auth type basic. These just move into a server block and you're done. Yellow means the logic exists in Nginx, but the shape differs. Files match, directory index, allow override, think before pasting. Red is the honest part. Per tenant overrides, user editable config without root, late binding rules. Nginx simply doesn't do these. That's not a translation problem. That's an architectural decision. So let's start with green, because it's the easiest win. Read across line by line. Rewrite engine on disappears. Nginx has rewrites on by default. The classic WordPress front controller pattern becomes a try files inside location / header set becomes add header with always. Error document becomes error page, and you can even collapse 500 class codes onto one line. Files match with a regex becomes location ~* with the same regex. Same logic, different syntax. That's roughly 80% of a typical htaccess done. Now the yellow bucket, where the logic survives, but the shape has to change. The classic trap, nested htaccess files. Apache walks the directory tree and layers each one onto its parent automatically. Nginx does none of that. You get one server block, and you have to manually fold every nested file into it as ordered location blocks. Site-wide rewrite at the root, IP plus auth on .admin, and a deny rule for PHP under .admin uploads. 3 files collapse into one, and the ordering is what makes it correct. And then there's red, the bucket where translation simply isn't on the table, because what you're relying on isn't a directive, it's a feature of Apache itself. 3 patterns live here. 1. Shared hosting, where tenants edit their own .htaccess in their home directory. Nginx has no per-user config, period. 2. Deploy without reload, where dropping a file on disk goes live instantly. Nginx needs a reload every time. And 3. Deeply nested inheritance, 5 to 10 levels deep, common in legacy CMSs. You can flatten it, but you'll end up with a 500-line server block nobody can debug. Spot these early, and you save yourself weeks of dead-end work. So with that triage framework in hand, here's the actual workflow. 5 steps, run in order. Start by inventorying every .htaccess file under your web root with find and align count. That tells you the scope. Then dump each directive into a triage file and mark it green, yellow, or red. Greens translate one by one straight into your server block. Yellows, the nested files, get merged into a single server block with location directives, and reds force a decision. Accept the architectural change. Keep Apache for that section, or abort and document why. The healthy ratio is roughly 80, 15, 5, and that 5% is what tells you if migration is even feasible. Now step back from the mechanics and ask the deeper question. Why does Nginx not have .htaccess at all? It's not an oversight. It's a deliberate philosophical split. Apache pays a runtime cost on every request, statting 4 files deep into your path, so admins can edit config without a reload. Nginx pays a deploy time cost instead and skips all that I/O. If you don't need per tenant edits, and 95% of modern apps don't, Nginx genuinely wins. The "you can't migrate" chorus is mostly fear-mongering. Triage your actual content and decide from evidence. So here's your printable triage sheet. Pair it with slide 3, and you've got the whole decision framework on one page. 4 of the 7 most common directives are pure green. Rewrite rule, header set, error document, and basic auth all have direct Nginx equivalents. Files match and nested.htaccess files go yellow. They translate, but you have to merge and flatten them into ordered locations. Only per-tenant editable config is genuinely red, and even then your answer is architectural, not syntactic. Framework's no good if it stays theoretical, so here are 3 drills that bake it into muscle memory. Exercise 1. Grab a real WordPress.htaccess and color every line green, yellow, or red. 20 minutes, and you'll find most of it is green. Exercise 2. Translate those green lines into an actual Nginx config and validate with Nginx T. Exercise 3. Merge the yellow ones, your nested files and files match blocks, into ordered location blocks in the same config. Do all 3, and a 30-minute migration plan becomes routine. Once you've drilled the framework, here are the 5 mistakes that still bite people in production. Forgetting nested.htaccess files, run find before you start, or admin auth dies 2 days later. Direct pasting without semicolons. Nginx will throw cryptic errors pointing at the wrong line. Using add header without always, your HSTS and CSP vanish on error responses, which is exactly when attackers want them gone. Ignoring Nginx's location priority, exact beats, caret tilde beats, regex beats prefix, not top to bottom. And finally, leaving the old .htaccess on disk with AllowOverride all, revert Apache once and the ghost config takes over. Catch these before cutover, not at 3 a.m. That wraps Lesson 03. You've got the 3 buckets, you know what auto-translates, what needs careful merging, and what demands real architectural rework. Next up, mod rewrite, the regex beast itself. We'll map Apache's flags to Nginx's rewrite directives, walk both flavors of regex, and call out exactly when a rewrite translates cleanly and when it just doesn't. See you in Lesson 04.